What I have with me today is a recipe for intimidation. You see, they tell me it's the fastest and quickest SUV on the planet right now. And with a top speed of 305 kilometers an hour and 0 to 100 in just 3.6 seconds, you can bet I believe them. And the other reason it's intimidating is because it's a Lamborghini. And if you know your supercars, you'll know that they make only the hardest and fiercest ones of them all. And today I'm going to sample this massive, quick behemoth on tiny, twisty Indian roads. So, wish me luck. Actually, this is not the first Lamborghini SUV. That was the LM002 of the late 80s. But while that thing was an Italian take on the Humvee, the Urus feels altogether more Lamborghini-ish. Just look at those lines and cuts, and that roofline that just slams down to the tail. The headlamps and tail lamps are just slit like LEDs, and there's Y-shaped motifs everywhere. And did you ever think you'd see the day when 22-inch wheels were the medium size? You can opt for 23s, and Lambo even says they're working on a set of 24s. Does it need to have all this madness? Certainly not. But it's a Lambo, and by God, it simply has to look wild. And now, in what is an unprecedented move for most Lambo reviews, I'm going to talk about practicality. Now, the back seat of the Urus is really good by Lamborghini standards, which it would be because most Lamborghinis don't have back seats. But by SUV standards, it's really not that bad either. Legroom is really rather good. Comfort and support from the seat is good as well. But headroom, well, it's a little bit tight thanks to the sloping roof. Lamborghini says you can fit somebody who's 6'3" in the back here, but I suspect it would be quite tight for them. It's even got a massive boot, a whole 616 liters, and you can drop the seats for more. No, there's no full-size spare, but you do at least get an inflatable space saver. Unfortunately, our time with the Urus today is all too brief, and all we have is a quick blast up and down a narrow ghat road. And like I said at the start, that could be a recipe for intimidation. However, once you get inside and start driving, it's really not that intimidating at all. I mean, sure, everything inside here looks very Lamborghini, but as a driving experience, it feels very much like any big luxury SUV. I mean, I'm sitting nice and high up, I've got a great view forward. Okay, the view at the back is not that great at all thanks to the sloping roof. But otherwise, this would be right at home on any highway or traffic road. It feels spacious, and thanks to air suspension, it rides well despite those 22-inch wheels. But most of all, it gives you that commanding feeling from behind the wheel. The cabin too feels big and SUV-like, but also distinctly Lamborghini. If the cabin of a Huracan is like a fighter jet cockpit, this one feels more like the bridge of a battleship, with all the aviation-themed controls spread across a huge dashboard. It gets digital dials, of course, but what's more interesting is the dual touchscreen infotainment borrowed from the Audi A8. There are almost no buttons, and so you have to take your eyes off the road to use it. There's a virtual haptic click, but that only means you have to prod the screen harder for it to work. Not ideal. Similarly, while the tamburo lever for the drive modes and the gear selector both look cool, they don't feel intuitive to use and will take a lot of getting used to. Still, there's no denying it all adds to the drama of being in a Lambo. Now the road's getting a bit twisty, time to see what the Urus is more of, an SUV or a Lamborghini. Now I have the car currently in Strada mode, which is essentially for the street and for comfort. And I gotta say, yes, it does feel very much like an SUV, but there's no escaping the lump of power that lives under the bonnet. The throttle is a bit mushy early on, of course, this being comfort mode, but once you push it past, say, the 2000 RPM mark, you feel it come to life and you hear a bit of a rumble. Now this engine, this 4-liter V8, is closely related to the engine you get in a lot of VW Group cars. The Porsche Panamera and Cayenne, for example, and also Audi's RS6 and RS7. This is the most powerful iteration of it so far, and also definitely the best sounding one. Definitely not the same as the naturally aspirated motors, but still pretty good. Things get decidedly better once you dial it up into sport mode. The gear shifts are more aggressive now, and there's more of that growl. It's gotten a little bit bumpier, but what I like is that body control has tightened up and the steering's gotten a bit heavier and weightier, which is nice on a road like this. I've now put it into Corsa mode, which is of course for the track. And oh, it's gotten even louder. If you thought this 4-litre V8 sounded aggressive in something like a Porsche Panamera, that's how it sounds in sport mode here. When you put it in Corsa, it sounds like you've never heard it before. Oh, the shifts are aggressive in Corsa mode. Yeah, it's a proper Lamborghini, at least when it comes to the gearbox. Now, aggressive and exciting as it is in Corsa mode, I think I'll dial it back down to sport for use on the road because it's just a little bit more manageable that way. The steering is just unbelievable. This 2-meter wide car turns in so sharply, and of course that has a lot to do with the rear wheel steering system that virtually shortens the wheelbase. I never thought such a big car could be so agile. But hey, I guess that's what you get when you ask Lamborghini to make an SUV. What you also get is a price to match. At 3.1 crore rupees ex-showroom, there are only a handful of SUVs more expensive than an Urus. But while most of those focus on luxury, this one is all about the performance. It may not be quite as brutal as a Huracan or a Aventador, but no SUV I've driven has ever come closer to replicating that savage Lambo feel. And when you dial it back to Strada mode, it becomes plush and comfy and truly usable on Indian roads. No wonder it's sold out for the first year in India. It's not the perfect Lambo, nor is it the perfect SUV. But as a combination of the two, the Urus is far greater than the sum of its parts.